And I just lost all the respect I had for that shop owner right then and there. When I told him I had to go to a baby shower, he goes, man, just let your wife go. That's what he tells me. When I bought a scope, he's like, what do you need that for? Like, for everything. He had an answer. It was, hey man, business first, work first, nothing else. I used to drive almost an hour and a half to and from to get to that job. And for him, it's nothing. It's nothing. It was it's just taken for granted at that point. And it showed. He's the same guy that told me, you're nothing special. Because I asked for a raise. He's like, what? What more do you want? You're nothing special. I'm like, okay, I'll go find more. I got a kid on the way.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting, thought-provoking episode of the Jaded Mechanic Podcast. My name's Jeff, and I'd like to thank you for joining me on this journey of reflection and insight into the toils and triumphs of a career in automotive repair. After more than 20 years of skin knuckles and tool debt, I want to share my perspectives and hear other people's thoughts about our industry. So pour yourself a strong coffee or grab a cold Canadian beer and get ready for some great conversation. Welcome back to another episode of the Jaded Mechanic Podcast. It is a hot one here, and with my guest tonight, it's hot where he is too. I am with the very famous, very respected Mario Rojas of SuperMario Diagnostics. So, Mario, how are you tonight, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm pretty honored to be on your show. It's been a good listen so far.
The honor's all mine, and I got to thank you because what got me kicked off into doing this is you did an episode for ASOG way back when. You recorded with Lucas
the first time.
Yeah, the first one. And when I heard you, I'm like, well, shit. I want to hear, I have not a rebuttal, but I mean, I had a different perspective, right? And then it was like, look at where we are now, right? I mean, we met last year at ASTE, and I've known you I don't want to say a long time, but a few years, right? And so to watch where you've gone has been really cool. And like I said, ASTE is coming up. Now, you're going to ASTE. I'm going to ASTE. What are you doing when you're there? Because I've heard it's going to be a pretty big thing.
It's always big, and that's what I love about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually taking no technical classes this time. I'm taking all business classes.
Right.
Because it's not to take away from the technical, but I feel like it can definitely help, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I took actually a couple of business classes the last time I went, and kind of opened the door to broaden my horizons a bit. But yeah, I plan on learning a lot and meeting new people, and also getting back together with the friends I've made throughout the years already.
Yeah,
it's going to be very cool, and I can't wait. I can't believe it's already less than 20 days away.
I know.
Well, 21 days away.
The year went so fast, right? Because I mean, for me, it wasn't long after I got back that I started this podcast. And then it's just been a blur after that. Like, it literally seems like, go to work every day and then come home and try to do, keep doing my work online in terms of who I follow and, watch this person's video and that person's video and stuff like that. Like, I hardly watch TV anymore, right? I just watch online creators, YouTube. And then it's when the podcast started rolling, like you and I were just talking before we got online, the time that you have to dedicate to that. I said to you last year, and because I'd see you, like the last couple of times you'd been ASTE, you just recorded live with a couple of people, like you sat down and interviewed with Paul and some other people, and I thought, that doesn't look all that hard. And then when I started to see, right, what goes into doing the online stuff, I was like, how does Mario find the time to do it, right? Like, he's just, so you're taking classes. Are you doing anything else when you're there?
So I was planning on filming it too. I usually do.
Yeah.
And but I haven't come up with any questions yet. Maybe we should come up with some questions, huh?
We could, honestly, and we could do that because, I mean, I'm sure your phone blows up all the time, and mine does too. And it's a lot of people that are like, are you going to ASTE? Like, and everybody's just like, okay, I want to sit down and and talk to you for a few minutes. And it's like, so for me, when I go this time, I'm not enrolled in any classes. I'm gonna kind of be just going around like a, from what I understand, like a almost like a press junket, and pop in on a couple classes, listen for a few minutes, right? Maybe do a little bit of filming that way, and then a lot of it is just going to be booking interviews and recording a bunch of
Nice.
episodes, because it's so much. I think it's going to be so much better when people are in the same room recording versus and people are obviously, you know what it's like to walk around AST or any of the shows. People are just like in a good mood, right? You're away from the shop. It's kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
people are excited. You're on that euphoric high of, you know, you're doing what you absolutely love to do. And I think that's really going to bring another aspect to this that's really cool. So, I mean, you're way ahead because you always have like a, you know, a good question for the people. And, you know, me, I just kind of sit down and it's like, okay, so, you know, tell me your backstory.
Well, that takes talent too. I mean, to just sit down and wing it, it's not an easy task either.
Yeah,
So to
I
just
don't
pop out conversations out of nowhere, it's not easy.
know. Well, and because you know how sometimes it can be, right? Like you see the groups and you see the different topics that pop up, and I find, do you like, are you somebody that writes down a bunch of notes? Like I know you were talking before we got on about different things at work. When you're doing something, you'll write the process down. But for me, like I'm kind of like, I do it like as songwriters, I guess, do. When an idea pops in my head, I write it in a notebook, right? And then
Yeah.
when I sit down to think about doing a podcast, I look at that idea that I wrote down, and then I normally jot down a name next to that idea, and then I think about talking to that person, right? So far it's been, and I mean, you've been listening and that's great. There's been so many people that just want to talk about what they went through in this industry or what they're going through, right? That I mean, there's no shortage of people that want to get out there and kind of unburden, right? Tell how they got into this, what made them want to fix cars, and then, you know, the pluses and the minuses, right? Like Cody, just his dropped on Tuesday. We were just talking about that, and you know, his is a great backstory because it resonates with so many people, you know, and he's such a respected figure, same as yourself. Like, and I like most of the people I end up talking to now, a lot of them, they're younger than me, you know? So it's like, that's kind of cool that I'm the older person that's talking to these young people, because it makes me feel really good when I talk to somebody that's like got a much more optimistic outlook about the industry, say in their late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, whatever, than what I did. Because in 10 years ago, like this industry had me really bummed. And, you know, so it's nice to see that the younger people that are coming up, if they can skip all that I went through, it's a good thing, you know? So how did you,
Definitely.
like, I know, did you, I want to say, here's what I know about Mario. You bought an old motorcycle or something at one point, and that's kind of how you started? Is that true, or is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got me a 2000, 2000 Gixxer 750,
Okay.
and it was my third bike at the time, and I was in love with motorcycles from the beginning. Even now, I love motorcycles more than cars. I love fixing cars, but don't get me wrong, they don't interest me. I cannot recite horsepower numbers to you.
Okay.
I just it doesn't appeal to me.
Right.
But motorcycles, I mean, I can't recite horsepower numbers for
No.
motorcycles either, but I love them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's kind of what got it started. Is more of a necessity aspect of it all. I the front sprocket, so that the chain broke while I was riding it, and the front sprocket got wound up with the chain
Okay.
and broke open the crankcase. And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
luckily for me, there was a manual. There was a complete manual. If you go to other brands, they'll tell you go to the dealer. You look at the PDF or whatever. Yeah, they tell you to take it to the dealer.
Right.
And I mean, I guess some people like that, but I didn't. And fortunate enough, I had that Gixxer manual. If you look up a 2000 Gixxer 750 manual, you'll see every single torque spec, every single process from start to finish. You could rebuild that bike using that manual. And I guess I was never into school. I wasn't very
Uh-huh.
academically inclined,
Right.
but or I guess I kind of focused more later on
Yeah.
than I should have, and I guess that paid off because I scoured that PDF for 6 months while I saved up to buy the parts that I needed, even the tools too, the torque wrenches and
Right.
everything. Because I guess I went crazy with the torque and all that, and it just fascinated me. It fascinated me that there was all this going on. And this is coming from somebody who didn't really have any kind of textbook knowledge on automotive
Mhm.
or uh, mechanic work at all,
Yeah.
so to speak. So
So you
it
weren't
fascinated me.
you weren't into the car club scene in high school or anything like that, or so many of the
Nah,
you hear me talk all the time about the
I
guys.
was a troublemaker.
Really, eh? I wouldn't have thought that, man.
Yeah,
Honestly. So,
I was. Yeah, I was hanging out with the wrong crowd, and
well, you're a bit of a rock and roller, eh? Right? You're the musician and everything. So I can see how that.
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah, I like to play guitar, and I still do.
yeah. So you got the motorcycle, and then it.
Yeah.
So how tell us how you went from kind of rebuilding a bike to working on cars, because I mean you could have went into a bike shop, right? That maybe would
Yeah, and
have been.
I tried actually. I so that same bike before I you know blew the crankcase wide open, it had charging issues,
Mhm.
and took it to a shop and gave them all the diag money that they asked for, and it kept having issues. It kept having charging issues. They rebuilt the stator, they rewound it and everything, and they kept focusing on that. And I said, you know what? I need my bike back. Take the money. I just want my bike back. With the problems, I didn't care. I'm like, they had it for months, and they were a reputable place. And you know, uh, I'm not gonna go bad mouthing them. They just didn't get this one, and I got impatient. I didn't give them the time that they needed. But nonetheless, still had the charging problem. It was a three phase. Motorcycles. With cars, there's alternators, regulators, all that is built into one unit. But motorcycles, it's not like that. They have the regulator outside. Yeah. So there's three wires running from the stator to the regulator. And this is all stuff that I was learning after I diaged it. I'm sorry, after they diaged it and didn't fix it. I started reading that manual.
Right.
And I didn't know how to read diagrams, but I understood that it was a three-phase regulated. And so I took it apart. I took apart the body panels and revealed the three wires. I wanted to check the wiring. I wanted to see what was going on. And I could see the three wires were burnt at the connector. There was a
Okay.
connector. Yeah. And I tried looking for solutions to replace that connector, and I couldn't find the connector itself. And I knew that if I was going to do some kind of rig on there, it was just going to melt again. So I found some heavy duty stuff at Radio Shack when it existed.
Okay.
It was awesome. I found a heavy duty connector, but not a connector per se, but it got the job done, and
Yeah.
that fixed it. So, and then I asked for a job, and they were like, "Oh, we're slammed already." So I didn't get the job. So then, yeah, I broke I broke my bike with the chain breaking, and that's when it really, because it was necessity, but it was necessity like to the extreme, because
Mhm.
I didn't have like I was getting minimum wage at the time. I was getting almost nothing, and when that happened, I rebuilt it. Split the crankcase. It has three parts: the head, the middle crankcase, and the lower crankcase, which houses the gearbox, and put it back together. And on first gear, it made a noise that it was very cyclical. So it started making like a tap noise,
Right.
and I had to rip that sucker open again, take the engine out, rip it open again. It turns out that when the chain got wound up,
Mhm.
it it made like a torsional kind of pressure against the first gear,
Right.
and it literally, the gears bit into each other, so I had to replace the gears too.
Okay.
So once I did that, I was rolling around on my bike and started looking for work. I was, getting minimum wage, and I was, I was already in my 20s. I didn't know what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
and even though, because I don't know if you're familiar with this, but every public high school that I know of has to take the TABE test, which is the like the military like aptitude test.
Okay.
Basically the military. I forgot which one. I think it's the army. They go and they take everyone takes the TABE test, and what they do with that test is they find out what you excel in. And funnily enough, they said that I would be a good mechanic,
Right.
which didn't mean much to me at the time because I was like, how can I be a mechanic? I don't know anything about mechanics,
Yeah.
and that's something that I'm. I wish more people would consider. But anyway, once I put it all back together, I was looking for work. I was getting paid minimum wage at the time. I was at that very moment. I was already unemployed, and I had bills to pay too. I was already living on my own.
Hmm.
I was in my. I was 23. No, yeah, 23. I was 23, and I went to Winn Dixie, which is like a supermarket,
Okay.
looking for work. Yeah, go figure. And then my wife tells me, we were already married at the time. She tells me, why don't you just, you're good with your hands. You bought tools. You can do this stuff. Why don't you go that tires place at the 10 minutes away? Why don't you go apply there and see what happens? So I did, and I walk into my I walk into the shop all confident, like, "Hey, man, I could rebuild engines." And the guy's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, we'll start you from the beginning." I'm like, "All right, let's do it." That's where I started. I started at Tires Plus, 2013, and really, like, yeah, I could turn bolts, I could tell when something's about to strip and this and that, but I didn't really know much about cars all that much. I was doing brakes on the side at the time, struts,
So
but that's it.
10 years ago, you started your career in a
Yeah,
tire store, and
yeah.
already look at where you are now. That's pretty impressive, dude. Really, honestly. So you show up at the tire store? Do you ride the bike to the tire store and kind of say like, "Hey, I rebuilt
Well,
that"?
I could walk.
Oh, okay. So didn't need to take the bike. Yeah.
Yeah, because at the time, that bike, the oh, I was racing it. Yeah, I was racing it. I was going like 200 miles an hour,
Holy.
and I blew it. Yeah, don't tell my wife that though.
Oh, I won't. I won't. She may never hear this, so that's good.
Yeah, I rebuilt it, and some time passed by, and I raced it, blew it again. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done with it. I'll move on to another bike when the time comes. And since I was looking for work, and I could walk 10 minutes away, that's when she came up with the idea. "Hey, why don't you just go to Tires Plus and get a job with them?"
Hmm.
And so I did, and yeah, I started from zero. Oil changes, tires galore, and uh,
Wow. So no,
being the flashlight kid.
yeah, you never took a UTI course. You never took like auto shop in high school. You just
No,
started a tire store. So how did you?
no.
How long did it
Took
get?
wood shop.
Yeah, how long did it get before you kind of were realizing, okay, like I kind of have an aptitude for this? Like, was there anything that kind of like, did you have a light bulb moment where you went, like an example, maybe something that somebody struggled with that you saw it as pretty easy, or was there a particular job that like, kicked your butt, but it kind of directed you to what you liked to do, or where did it show you strength? You know what I mean by those kind of question? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it wasn't more like, oh, I think I come to a point where this is easy. I just wanted a clear path, and once I saw a clear path, then I was like, okay, there's a way. And that was when I did my first diag, and they. Long story short, I did valve covers on a Mitsubishi, and it came back with lean codes.
okay.
And they're like, "Hey, you did the valve covers. You got to figure it out." That was the thing. Hey, you're the mechanic. You figure it out. And so they handed me the RO, and it was the end of day, and I got the classic P0171. Both banks lean, and I'm like, what are field trims? So then I went home. It was the end of the day. So I went home, studied, found some videos on fuel trims. I'm like, whoa, there's a way to read how much fuel is coming in and it's metered and it's compensated. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, this is interesting. So, and then behavioral patterns with the fuel trim numbers, if it's lean, idle, and it corrects and all that
Yeah.
stuff. It could be the math, it could be this, and it could be that. So I went back to work and I started to look at the fuel trims, and it was lean at idle and corrected with acceleration.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't have a smoke machine because according to my studies, we had to smoke it.
Right.
We didn't have a smoke machine, and at the time, it was like $1,500. The cheapest one was like $1,500 at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and not for nothing, but they at that shop it was not geared towards diag. At this
No.
point, we were just doing a gasket, and we had codes after, so now we have to deal with it. It wasn't like, oh, hey guys, I got my check engine light. I want you to diagnose this and this and that.
Yeah.
Even though the master tech at that place did diags. So the smoke machine conundrum was pretty much on me. They didn't tell me, hey, figure it out or anything. They just said, hey, we don't have one,
Hmm.
and I wasn't gonna go buy one, so I made one. I got a
Right
clean,
on.
empty paint can
Yeah.
from Home Depot. Put an air regulator on there and burned some stuff in there. I won't mention what. I'm just kidding. It was just cardboard.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't really know baby oil, mineral oil, this and that. I just burned cardboard. I need smoke. I don't care what it is. I need smoke. And it turns out the EGR gasket was leaking, and at the time we couldn't source one, so I won't go much further than that.
Hmm.
We got it figured out, and that's when they congratulated me. They it was well received. They were like, "Hey, man, that's what technicians do,"
Right.
and that's when I was like, "Yeah, maybe there's a way to actually diagnose these things instead of just, hey, what do I do? I got fuel trim codes. It's lean,
Right.
and what does that mean? Is it a fuel pump? Is it this?" So once I saw that there was a way, just a clear path, I wanted to stay on that path.
Hmm.
I didn't want to be, hey, I found this gravy that I could just stick to for the rest of my life. Nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's great. A lot of people make a great living doing that.
Hmm.
But all I wanted was just a light at the end of the tunnel where I could just see clearly forward through, you know, don't even get me started when I first realized that you can visually see electricity with a scope.
Yeah.
That blew my mind. Once I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness,
Yeah. So
I can see electricity.
when you started talking about these videos, is that about when you found Paul Danner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So his that's so once that diag took over, you get it's like coming back from a training event. You're like, let's do this, let's go.
Yeah.
But Scanner Danner's videos were more of like the he's the one that I saw when it was like, oh, 5.0 reference. I'm like, 5.0 reference, what's that?
Hmm.
That's when things started to kick off with Scanner Danner videos. Once I started doing that diag, I'm like, maybe this is what I want to do. Maybe I want to find out what's wrong with these cars instead of, you know,
Yeah.
doing, you know, service on them 24/7. Uh, that's just something that clicked inside of me. I was just like, I want to start actually diagnosing, troubleshooting these things.
Challenging yourself.
Yeah. So I hit the YouTube and found Scanner Danner, and then I just like watched as much as I could. And the thing about Scanner Danner is that his newer videos are a different flavor, I would say, because he has his cameraman, he has like a whole thing going on. But back then, it was all classes,
Oh,
and it was all hands-on classes too. Like he had the car nearby and asking students. And the thing about Paul Danner in those days, what helped me learn it's what helps me learn anything. It's repetition.
yeah.
Just if it doesn't make sense, repeat it over and repeat it again, and Google whatever word you don't know. When somebody said induction, when somebody said current ramps, when somebody said bias, voltage drop. Just Google it. What's voltage drop? What's bias? What's anything I didn't know? I would just Google it, and then I would watch it again, and then Google whatever I didn't know, watch it again, and then build on top of that
Till they start
each time.
making
So
more and more sense, right? Like you start
yeah,
to be able
exactly.
to
Yeah,
go into more and more of his videos without having to without having to Google. Like that's how I found him. I think I probably found him about the same time you probably did. And I can remember the old videos where he was at like Latour's, right? And he'd be, with like a camera on a tripod, right? And he would be almost doing it like live. And I remembered his classroom stuff too.
yeah,
His classroom stuff was great. But I really got jonesed on the he's called out to the other shop, right? He's at Latour's and he's the car's sitting there and it doesn't start or it doesn't run, and he's got a test light and a scan tool, and he's getting to the problem. He's doing the diag within an hour, and I'm like, I've had cars like that
yeah.
where it's taken me a morning to get to where he got in 25 minutes. Like, how do I learn this magic, right? Yeah, he's such a cool dude. He's so I mean, when to come to AST,
Yes.
yeah, to come to AST last year and sit with you guys like him and Corey from Staten Island and Brian and yourself, and just be like, I said it, but I was just dumbfounded to be sitting there. You know what I mean? With like these, you know, visionaries of the industry in terms of what they've done in sharing so much that they've shared. I was just like gobsmacked. I was just beside myself with that. And he's such a humble dude, right? Like he's so,
Yeah, definitely.
you know. So when you at the tire shop, you kind of start to push yourself. How does that work for? Were you flat rate? Were you straight time? Were you on a kind of a bonus system? Like,
So I didn't have any certifications at first. I was base plus salary.
mhm,
I'm sorry, base plus commission.
okay,
Uh, yeah, certain percentage and whatnot. Actually, the whole time I was there, it was like that. It's just the numbers grow as you get certified and whatnot. But I never fully became a diag tech in that shop. It took me leaving there to become more of a
okay.
diag tech, so to speak.
And when you say certified, you were going into your ASEs?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They were paying like at the time I think 450 per cert.
Okay.
So
Wow.
I was like, it's free money. Go get it. I mean, yeah. Go
Makes
take a test, learn it, and don't get me wrong. I know there's a lot of people who say, he's a test taker, this and that. I think that's BS. If you don't know the material, you don't know the material, period.
I agree.
So
I agree. So
I did fail them a couple of times. The hard one for me at the time, because remember, I didn't know squat. The HVAC. The HVAC
oh,
got me.
dude,
Yeah.
I'm terrible at it too. Honestly, I really am.
I,
If you put a set of gauges up in front of me and it's like, what does this mean? I'll be like, it means it ain't working. That's all I can tell you. Because I got a
I
full,
mean, at the time, I was
you know.
yeah. At the time, I was so fascinated with the system that I didn't really focus on learning it. Like I was like blown away by the system itself. I couldn't believe that this is how it worked,
Mhm.
and I guess I let that cloud me a bit.
Yeah.
But then I started learning the electrical because HVAC and electrical for ASEs kind of uh, overlap in a way.
Right.
You kind of have to have some electrical background in order to successfully diagnose HVAC problems. So, and believe it or not, the easiest one for me was the electrical one. So
Okay.
once I once I got that confidence, I went back and did the HVAC, and um, this was when I was like already 2 years into the industry.
Mhm.
So, and I'm still changing oil. So I was trying to get ahead. I wasn't doing it first and then taking the test. So I was kind of trying to preemptively get ahead
Yeah.
here, which is what I tend to do anyway. Because I get people who ask me, "Hey, how do you learn the scope? This and that." Before I bought the scope, I studied it.
Mhm.
Before I fixed my motorcycle, I studied the manual.
Right.
I studied before I get the actual tool, so that when the tool arrives, I can maximize it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always work out, but I try my best to do that, and it seems to be working.
So did you find that store, would you say then it was pretty supportive of you, or did you find it was an obstacle for where you wanted to go?
Well, that changes with perspective because it's in the mind. When you're starting out, you'll take anything, right? You'll take anything you could get, and everything is a blessing. Everything is amazing. Then you start to grow, and you start to, if you have the that reflection of, well, if I'm growing, I should, charge my worth. Then it starts to outbalance. It starts to outweigh that feeling you got when you first got the job, right? So you first get the job, everything's beautiful, it's honeymoon, it's hard work, but it's great, and you're learning something, and you're gonna make a career out of it. But once you get to a point where you feel like there's more,
Right.
and you don't, you start to have doubts as to whether where you're at is the place
Mm-hmm.
to get more and to learn more, then it outweighs all that feeling you had at the
Yeah.
beginning, you know.
So
But
it's
once you outgrow a shop, you have to decide, hey, am I choking myself by staying here, or is there anything better out there?
yeah.
We don't know. You know, there's a lot going through a tech's mind when they come to at that crossroads where they feel that they could either be valued more elsewhere or become more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hard choice to make. Like, these guys got me started. They taught me. They took me to my first electrical class. They did this and that. But at the same time, mm, I want to be a diag tech.
Yeah. And sometimes the
So
business model that you're in the shop isn't necessarily like they're not intending to hold you back, right? It's I mean,
right,
it's a tire store, right? Their predominant main focus first and foremost is still to operate as that. And I operated in one. Like
exactly.
I worked in one, and it was, I can still remember the owner of the store, like, because we would bring in anything, and they had a very good reputation of being able to be not just a tire store, but like, we had some Europeans that would come in, European cars, and we'd work on them. And I can remember some of them
Yeah,
being like, they just kick your tail, because back then a Snap-on's tool on a BMW or a Mercedes was not very, it had holes. And I can still remember the owner of the store saying, "I wish we never booked these kind of cars in." He said, "I just wish that we only stuck to doing tires." And I'm standing there thinking, like, you've been in business 30 years and known as not just a tire store, even though the name is, Fielding Tire.
yeah,
It was such a statement for him to say, and I understood where he was coming from. It was just because 80% of them were relatively easy, but it was the 20% that were like really challenging that made him wish that they'd never booked that car in, right? That they just stuck to doing what they did. It was such a funny perspective for me, because I'm sitting there going, we probably made twice as much money last month because we could do both, right? Tires and, diag and all that kind of stuff. And yet you wish that we only did tires. Like, he saw that all the other work as just an obstacle to being able to do more
right.
tires.
Lost opportunity
Yeah.
cost.
Right. And I don't know. I think that we sometimes in the industry, both the shop owners and the employees, we get stuck, like you said, in a rut where you see yourself and you're like, because I know I did it. I spent so many years in a dealer because you get familiar with the product, right? It becomes routine. You kind of know what to look for. You get really familiar with the service information system. You get really familiar with the OE scan tool, and you become comfortable. And then it just becomes
Yeah.
a situation of, like, it becomes a game of how many hours do I produce, right? And then that's a whole other thing. And then you get there, and pretty soon you're like, this is all just boring. Like, I'm not getting challenged. And when I do get challenged, it financially really hurts, right? You get a really tough diag
Oh yeah.
car. Like, I mean, I'd have brand new stuff that had like ABS lights on or airbag faults, and you go in and it was pin fitment issues. Or I remember I had a side curtain on a Grand Cherokee that when they crimped the terminal onto the end of the wire to go into the airbag, they never stripped the insulation back. So it made the connection and it crimped like it did, but it didn't make the connection. You know what I mean? And I was just like,
Yeah.
that's a brand new car. Like, it didn't have 1,000 miles on it. literally didn't have 500 miles on it. It never left the lot. And I'm sitting here going, how can this happen? Right? So you spend all this time and you fix the car. By the time you get into taking the headliner down, getting the airbag out, you lose your butt, and you're like, that sucks. But at least it broke.
I never understood why technicians should be made responsible for the defects of the manufacturing process. I don't get that.
Yeah. And well,
Why?
and you got to remember, like, if you talk to like a field service engineer that comes down from the OEs, or you talk to, when you go on to training, I can remember going to training for Chrysler, and the guy telling me, because you'd say, well, this job sucked and the diag was this and that. And he'd remind us, nowhere does the OE tell the manufacturer that they have to pay you guys flat rate. That's not stated anywhere that that's how you have to be paid. It is every dealership's choice, or most of them, to choose to pay that way, right? And that's something that really sunk with me, because it's like, well, then if the OE just wants the car fixed properly and they give me everything that it takes that I should need to fix it properly, and I fix it properly, and I don't get paid for my time, I don't hate the product then, you know what I mean? I hate the person that's not paying me, or the money machine, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it never made sense to me either, Mario. And why did I do it so long? Because you know how it is. You get those jobs where you do the time, and like you're cutting the warranty time in half. And then when they're coming in retail, it's like you're 400% efficient on that one job. You do a couple of them, and all of a sudden, if you get a diag and the most you get is like your time covered, you go, well, it still comes out in the wash. And then the problem being is that the more diag that they start to give you, there's less of that other work.
The more you take,
Yes.
the more you have to take.
Yeah, because it's like I got, I mean, I'm no wizard, but I mean, I got known as the guy in the dealership that got drunk on the challenge of it, right? I had an ego about trying to solve this stuff, same as you. And then, people in this industry know it. The more you get at it, the more they give to you to do, until that's all you're doing pretty soon. And you're the go-to guy for that in the shop. And then, the compensation financially can take a real change. You can watch a guy over there, he did 6 rack and pinions, in 2 days. There's 30 hours, right? And you've been on 2 diags for 2 days and you haven't made 8 hours yet, This is the problem that was always in the dealerships. It was like, we watched how certain guys, because I worked with a lot of smart guys, but they would do diag work at home on the side, but they didn't do it at work, because they're like, nope, I watch what you do and there's no way I would do that, So
Right, the system has not incentivized them to take on that kind of work.
Yeah. So,
and I'm not knocking flat rate. If you want to do flat rate, that's cool. But
no.
It doesn't really incentivize somebody to take on the hard ones. I don't see the incentive.
No, it's not. I mean, I'd be a hypocrite if I said that, flat rate is a terrible thing, because I mean, it's worked. I've made a lot of money doing it in the past. It just always have to add in when we're having that conversation about that I made a lot of that money on work that wasn't diag, right? If I was a straight diag tech in the shop, I would. If I could go back and they said, okay, you're only going to do diag in the dealership, I'd be like, I need a salary. Case closed. That's it.
Yeah, if you want me to do diag,
Yeah.
give me compensation. If you want me to bang out stuff, all right, give me flat rate.
Mm-hmm. So
if you're going to give me flat rate, then give me bangers. Give me the sold jobs.
So how did you?
Because there's no incentive. Sorry.
How did you move on from the tire store?
Oh man, that was a rough one.
Was it?
So I got injured. Yeah, I got injured on the job, and it wasn't well received.
Right.
This industry can be very harsh to the injured and to the older ones, to the ones who get slower and don't have a way to mitigate the losses of production. So because when you get older or when you get injured, you can't physically bang out the work. So what else are you gonna supplement that with? Is it gonna be, electrical? Is it gonna be programming? Is it gonna be a mentor type position? So at the time I got injured, my hand got injured, and I couldn't do anything. Uh, so they put me in the front. I learned the front. Started learning all the, you know, customer stuff, the selling the jobs,
Right.
pricing out the jobs, purchase orders, accounts receivable, payable, all that stuff. And I got that experience doing that with my middle finger sticking out. And I say that because my middle finger was injured. I had to wear a stent,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and I had to hold it up like this. I was literally going like this to everyone, and yeah, so it wasn't really well received. And there was rumors and all that, and um, from like upper management, and I'm not gonna go too crazy into detail because
No. Yeah.
right now I just it doesn't really benefit anybody, but it drove me away. It drove me away, and when a particular event happened, I was already on the lookout. I was like, okay, I got to move on from here.
Yeah.
So I started looking. I started looking elsewhere, and I found something the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I was injured, but I was going through physical therapy. And when the event that drove me away was coming up, I heard rumors. I had a feeling about it until it finally happened. And as I was hearing the rumors and all that, it was about 2 weeks time. I was pushing through that physical therapy hard,
Yeah.
hard. I'm like, screw it. They told me I would never be able to make a fist again,
Really?
and it got to me. Yeah, I'm like, I can't do that. That's my livelihood. If I can't do that, I'm done here, you know. And I pushed through that physical therapy, through all that, through the pain. It hurt like hell, but eventually, on the day that the event happened, I could make a closed fist
Mm-hmm.
with everything I had. I could fully, I could carry, I could push.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about hitting it. Of course, it still hurt, but I was ready. I was ready to use my hands again, and they couldn't have picked a worse time for them to do what they did. So I moved on. I moved on from there, and I went to a diesel place,
Wow.
which I lasted there 6 months. I didn't like it.
No.
Yeah, the thing is, it, it wasn't really like diesel drivability or anything like that. It was more aftermarket installations. It was electrical.
Okay.
You know, yeah. And they would bring a truck. They would redo the chassis. They would like rebuild the frame, all that stuff. Take everything that was behind it off. They would install their, you know, their product on it, and then I would install the lighting
Mhm.
around it and any electrical issues that it had. If there was any electrical issue, it just came my way. I got tired of holding my hands up. I was on a creeper
Yeah.
for 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day with my hands up against the frame the whole time. My arms black completely,
Yeah.
and my arms dead every night, every night. And I got tired of it. I said, you know what? I was good at automotive. Maybe I should go back to my first love. So I did.
Yeah.
I left that place, and it's funny because I I gave my notice, and the shop owner goes, "Oh man, I was just about to send you out to training," and I was like, "Too little, too late." I mean, why would you wait?
Yeah.
Why would you wait till like I'm out the door to do that? Anyway, the deal's done. I said it was nice working here. I learned a lot, and it's time for me to go back to automotive.
Hmm.
Um, it was more of a comfortable place to be. I didn't have to have my hands up 24/7. I could have my hands in a car
Yeah.
instead of my hands up on a truck. So went back to automotive, and went to like a old school shop.
Okay.
Old school, like I'm talking about all the carbureted cars and all that stuff. And
How did you like that?
uh, I respected the cars, but I, you know, parts availability, rust.
Yeah.
It was like rust buckets 24/7. So everything, and then the environment wasn't great either.
Okay.
the environment wasn't great for me. It wasn't conducive to learning. I couldn't get ahead on there. So yeah,
Do you think
I
that's because it was?
moved again.
Do you think that was because it was older technology, or do you think it was
Yes,
kind of so? It was the older technology, and they're like, you're young and
I
you
felt like I took a step back.
right, yeah,
Honestly, I did. Yeah, sure, I could. Yeah, rebuild a car. So what? Now we're dealing with electric cars. Tell me how I was gonna get ahead in my career by. I'm sorry, I'm not knocking people who do that, but I have a lot of time left.
Mhm.
I was already like 3 years or 4 years somewhere about into the industry, and I was like, "Am I? Is this what I'm gonna do?"
Yeah,
I don't know. The parts availability issue, the customers, sometimes they're very picky.
hmm
Uh, you know, it's very old school. That like I was intrigued by the scopes, and I just didn't see it. I didn't see it, and I hadn't heard much about electric cars at the time, but I felt like there was something that was coming. I felt like a big change was coming, just like every other big change that has come across.
yeah,
I felt like something was coming, and I was falling behind. And when I feel like I'm falling behind in a shop, I just I become a different person. I'm just like I can't be here anymore.
hmm
If I'm falling behind, I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice.
that's fair.
So, and also the shop too. I mean, I don't understand the shops that don't care to train their techs.
Yeah, like it's so getting back to when you made it, the guy talking comes out to you and he says, "Oh, I was just about to send you to training." And we hear once in a while where you'll see a shop owner and he'll pipe up and or she'll pipe up and they'll say, I don't want to pay, I don't want to train my staff because I get them trained up and then they leave, right? And
Yeah,
you've seen that old statement that somebody, I can't remember who made the quote, but it's very famous. I saw it way back in IATN, but it's been makes the rounds. And well, what if I train them and they leave? And you go, what if you don't train them and they stay? You know, I mean,
yeah.
that's exactly what
The
it
old
is,
adage.
right? Like because sure, you didn't have any outlay in money for training that they could then take and jump to the competitor and all of a sudden you're making the competitor a ton of money because you took all this training and took it over there.
Yep.
So you have a bunch of techs then that are still behind the curve of what's going on with the technology and stuff because they're not trained. Everything that could become simpler, you're fighting through it. It's not, you're not as efficient as you could be on it because everything is a brand new thing. Every challenge is a brand new challenge. Everything is like, how do I have to learn how this system works before I can even start to troubleshoot it. Where if you go on a training class and you get some familiarity with the system, yes, you still have to refresh yourself, but I mean, you can kind of sit down and go, okay, I know how this system works because I sat through a class on it. Now I have maybe an hour, 2 hours, whatever, shaved off of that repair time because it's familiar,
Exactly.
right? It's like different types,
Yeah.
different types of EVAPs.
Yeah. I say it too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's like different types of, like how Chrysler did EVAP versus how, Ford did EVAP for how, it's different. People that
Or
come in,
Toyota.
yes, right? Junk or Honda. Like, I mean, so it's like if you don't have any training on it, you're like, oh, it's another EVAP fault. And then you're sitting there going, they do what? Natural vacuum? What the blue blazes is that? Right. And before you know it, you've got an hour into just kind of learning what makes it different. Well, if you'd just been on a course, you kind of go, oh, I remember that, right? You get your little nuggets, as John Firm says, you get your little nuggets out of the training course.
It brings us back to that question you asked me: do I write notes or do I just kind of like listen? I think that before I answer that, I would always say you learn it the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is in the class. The hard way is in the bay.
Yeah.
That's where those notes come in. When I took Seth Thorson's class, that was the first Euro class I ever took,
hmm
and it blew my mind. He told me, "Hey, this is a field manual. You guys could keep it." He gave us a big old book, and it was about BMW turbo engines.
Right.
So what I did was all the stuff that wasn't written in the book, I wrote it down as he said it. So I could just, and then I would make my own index in the front. So
Mm,
I could just refer back to where, so I don't have to commit it to memory every single thing.
yes.
I'm really, my memory sucks. So I rather, if I can look it up, I'm just going to look it up.
Yeah.
And if I can make myself a field manual, I encourage everyone who takes training. If you have a manual in front of you, I get it now that everyone's going digital now,
Hmm.
but if you can make a field manual for yourself, if you get a paper copy, a hard copy, write down all those notes in every single page, everything they say, every TSB, every little nugget, and then make an index as you're going. Page this, he mentioned this. Page this, he mentioned this. Don't forget this. And then now that everything's going digital, what I do is I message it to myself. I take pictures of the slides,
Okay.
and then I message my notes to myself, and then I archive that when I get back home per system, like first per make model,
Hmm.
and then system, and it works out. It just works out. I think everyone should make some kind of an archive, so to
Yeah.
speak, when it
When
comes to training.
when we were in Brandon Steckler's class last year, I think you and I were both in that class, and I remember I was sitting there writing as fast as I could in the pages right on next to where in the thing, and you're back there. I think you brought a camera or something. I think right, and you were recording the class.
Yeah,
And
of
it seemed
course.
like, and I'm like, God damn it, he's smart. Like he's, always thinking two steps ahead. So, but I'm the same way. I have to write notes as I'm doing it because as I'm sitting in the class, I'm listening to what they're saying. But I'm reading because I read really fast. So I read really fast, and then he says something, and I see that what he said is not written there. So then I have to make the note because I feel like
Yeah,
if it's important enough for him to say, it should have been in the book, right? But I've already now read the page. It's not on the page. For my own brain, the way it works, I have to write it on that page. And I don't go as far as you do with making an index. That's a great idea. But I'm the same way. I have to take a note. And yeah, so this year I'm going to be at the back of the class. I'm going to film little bits and pieces of it for content. But I'm going to try your method for sure because
yeah. Hopefully you get page numbers though, because
yeah, yeah,
there's caveats everywhere.
yeah. So we're so what was I going to ask you? So when you left the kind of the old school shop, you got tired of
Yeah,
rust and you got tired of carburetors and stuff like that. Was it mostly like domestic kind of like, can I say it was like a hot rod shop? Not a whole lot of European stuff coming in, right? Not like
very very little, and they wouldn't let me touch it either.
really.
They were like I said, it wasn't conducive to learning. So oh no, no, you can't touch that, man. No, you can't touch that. So I was like, well, what exactly am I doing?
Yeah.
I felt like I was just another cog at that point in the machine, and just like just getting by,
Hmm.
and that wasn't enough for me. I think you'll find that a lot of successful or great technicians, they want more, and not in a greedy fashion, but they just they seek more. They're not content. As soon as you get complacent and content, is that's where you start to fall behind.
Yeah. It's
And I felt like I was starting to fall behind there.
hmm. So what was next for Mario?
I went to a flat rate shop.
Oh,
I had to get whatever I could. I mean, at the time, I was just like so sick of it. And then a friend of mine had told me, "Hey, somebody's hiring this and that." And at the time, the the flat rate wage was agreeable.
mhm,
So I went for it, and it was a very very small shop, very small. I'm talking about like 4 bays with two techs, um, not including the owner. The owner would wrench every now and then, but not much.
right.
And my first week there, he said, "Hey, you're the first person I ever hired to make 40 hours," and I was
Really?
working 60-hour weeks. Yeah, I was working 60-hour weeks, and I was like, I had to bust my ass to do it, but I couldn't. I was blown away by what he said too. I was like, that's how hard it is to make hours there.
Yeah.
So when I first got there, he just put me on a guarantee instead because he knew I was just gonna give it everything I got. Well, eventually he started adding more, and I get it. You're an owner. You want to take a vacation. You want to start stepping away.
Hmm.
I get it. I started answering phones. I started selling the jobs, then doing them,
Yep.
opening the shop, closing the shop. He took a vacation. He took the first vacation he had in like 27 years
Wow.
because I was able to run the shop
Yep.
by myself. And the other tech, just give him the give him whatever he wanted, whatever jobs he wanted. We were both flat rate, and he started to take away the guarantee while I was picking up phones
Right.
and selling jobs.
Because you're not producing hours.
And yeah, yeah, my production dropped, but I was managing the store
Yeah.
in a sense and allowing him. He came late every single day, which is not even close to the owner that I work with now. He's the first one there almost
Yeah.
every single day, and the last one to leave. And not to say that that's what I look for in an
Right.
owner, but it
No.
says a lot about a person. So once he started coming in at like almost freaking lunchtime and then leaving early and stuff, I just like and with the hours, one time he wanted to pay me 13 hours. I was getting nothing but oil changes and trying to sell jobs.
13 hours for a week.
Keep the other, yeah, for 60 hours worth of work. I was opening, closing, answering phones, writing it up, everything, everything. I got sick of it, and that's the guy that I mentioned before in the past. He laughed at me when I bought a scope. He's like, "What do you need that for?" And the first car I got wouldn't have been fixed without the scope.
Right.
So, but yeah, it wasn't conducive either to that. Like anytime I whipped out the scope, it was like
You're taking a
hazing and all that. And I was just like, all right, yeah, laugh what you want, but I'm learning here and I'm getting pretty damn good at this.
Yeah.
And I just stopped mentioning anything to him. I just like, hey, I got this car. This is what's wrong with it. Done. And instead of going through the whole process with them, oh, like my 5 volt reference is shorted,
Yeah.
or this pulse width is too thin or too thick for the tone wheel that it has. You know what I'm talking about, the Jeeps,
Yeah.
the
For
crank
sure.
sensors.
Yeah. So
And
how was he like? Were you able to kind of? Did he have a set diag time, or did you? How did that work? Like, because it was flat rate, so could you kind of look at the job and
he wasn't charging diag.
so if he's
He
not
was not
charging,
charging
you're
diag.
not getting paid diag.
Yeah. But at the time I was guaranteed and I was like, okay, we're good. We're guaranteed. And then he started dropping it. And
What a scumbag!
when he hit me with the 13 hours, I'm like, I'm not walking away with 13 hours of pay after all the things that I did for you. He's like, what are you talking about? You're not producing. I'm like, yeah, well,
I'm running the
I'm
store.
opening the shop.
Yeah.
I'm opening the shop. When I first got here and I made those 40 hours, I wasn't picking up any phones. I wasn't answering to any customer. I was working and renting all the time and nothing else. And I didn't have to worry about uh, this. Where's this customer's car parked, and where's this, where's that? How much did we quote this customer? What did they last say to you, or this and that, or like, where did you guys leave off? I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff, or actually taking in like shop materials and all that stuff. And so I gave him my notice and moved on from there. And then that's where I landed at the shop. I was there for years, actually. I was over 2 years. I mean, it's not much time. I know a lot of people are going to get on my ass about that. Like, this guy is just jumping shops. But you know what?
We hear that.
Nobody said I had to stay 20 years in a shop.
That's,
I'm going to find what's right for me.
that's right.
Period.
We hear that, eh?
I got to look out for me.
Yeah, well, those mechanics that they're out there wearing the wheels right off their toolbox because they move them around so much. And I mean, me as a guy, I know I just moved my box today. We talked about that before I got on. I've had that toolbox over 10 years, and I've moved. It's got some miles on it. I've moved it, and but there's a reason that they, I mean, the old tired adage, oh, the toolboxes have wheels for a reason. They do, because sometimes, as you've proven, we end up in places that are not our forever fit, if there is such a thing as a forever fit. And
Mm-hmm.
I used to hope that there was. And we were talking about, before we started recording, I mentioned to you how my garage is built in the back, that we just built in my backyard.
Yeah.
That's built by a guy that spent 30 years at one dealership. He started there right
Yeah.
off, literally like the day after high school. He had the job lined up. He walked in there, started he was kind of a gearhead. He played around with cars before he graduated high school, but he walked in there and he spent pretty near 30 years it was a Pontiac GMC dealership here in Kingston, Ontario. And when Pontiac closed down, right, GM stopped, they pulled the dealership rights because we had still a Chevrolet dealer in town, but there was going to be no more Pontiac, dealership. So they decided they're going to stay open as a Napa store, like a Napa, I say store, but you know what I mean, like a Napa service garage.
Repair center, yeah.
Repair center. And it only lasted like 14 months because once the warranty work was gone, they didn't know how to make enough money on retail work to keep it open. So with no car sales, with no part sales, and no warranty work coming in anymore, because they couldn't do warranty work on a Chevrolet that was still maybe sold. So all their customers that they'd sold cars to, they couldn't do warranty work on. So all of a sudden the dealership became just this. And he stuck it out until they closed down. And then he just said, you know what? I'm done. He's got really bad issues with his shoulders and his neck. He gets stingers. So it's the same that you were talking about laying under the truck and having your hands up. I get it too now. He would lose sensation in his hands from being
numb hands all day.
So he'd always kind of been very handy. And so he started building houses and went into contracting. And now he's got his son working for him as a contractor. So, I mean, it's funny that we talk about, is there such a thing as a forever shop for some techs? For some there is, but even when he looks back and he talks about it, he has no love for this industry in terms of he doesn't miss it 1 second, not one, and it's not just about the flat rate, because he said, well, I made good money when there was work, right? He was a mainline engine guy. He did not do diag. He just did, so you think about all the Chevy V6 front wheel drives that came in with leaky intakes, right? And the old Cavalier 22s, the head gaskets and stuff, like he did all of those, 4.3s, 5.7s, the camshafts when they used to go flat way back in the day in the small blocks. Like he did all that.
They still do.
Yeah. And right. So, I mean, but he looks at it and he goes, but I don't miss the job for 1 second. He says what it did to his body and his hands and everything else. So I say that, there's no necessarily whatever forever shop. And then the guy that came and picked up his flatbed truck and moved my toolbox today, he's a former tech as well. So
wow.
and so he moved my toolbox for me 5 years ago when I moved it to where it was, and he moved it for me again today. And it's funny, you just run into people and you talk to them and all that kind of stuff, and you figure out that you have some common friends that they've worked together back and forth and all that kind of jazz. But there is a whole lot of people in this that you'll run into in the day-to-day in other facets of life that at one point worked in a shop, were a mechanic, and they just, whatever, like an injury or, like you had, or just got fed up with it, they go and do something else. But so you wound up at the shop you're at now?
No. Not there yet.
Okay. So go ahead.
So yeah, I've been around town. So before I left that flat rate shop, that small shop, so my wife was pregnant, so that would have to, I think that was around 2017, right?
Right.
I was learning to use the scope, and the guy was laughing every time he had a chance, and that's cool. I don't care. I mean, but what really kind of like did it for me was when I was working on a car, and the customer, I was talking to the customer, and then, shop owner wasn't there at the time. He came later, and the customer was still there, but we were talking. This was an ex-police officer. I can't remember his name. I wish I did. I wish I could, thank him. But I was working on his car and telling him about, like, oh, I got my kids, this and that. My kid coming. I mean, my wife's pregnant, and responsibilities are coming. And I was working on his car, and I was telling him about getting more ASCs, this and that. and he was a retired police officer. And he said a simple statement, but it really stuck with me. And he said, "There's prestige in that."
Hmm.
And because I was like, I don't know, man, I don't know if I should get the ASCs and this and that. And he's like, man, there's prestige in that. And it kind of stuck. It stuck with me. And he said, I started talking to him about my baby and this and that, and on the way. And he goes, if I could tell you anything, because I see you work a lot, it would be, don't be the dad that misses everything.
Right.
And that really stuck to me a lot. And the shop owner comes in and he sees him talking and hears him talking, and the shop owner didn't care about anything except for his business. He goes, I can't stand that guy. He tells me about this guy, the guy that I suddenly had like a huge amount of respect for, and I just lost all the respect I had for that shop owner right then and there. Um,
Because
when I told him I had to go to a baby shower, he goes, "Man, just let your wife go." That's what he tells me. When I bought a scope, he's like, "What do you need that for?" Like for everything, he had an answer. It was like, "Hey, man, business first, work first, this and that." You know, nothing else. I used to drive almost like an hour and a half to and from
wow,
to get to that job, and for him, it's nothing. It's nothing.
it
You
didn't,
know,
it didn't mean
it
that.
was very, yeah. It's just taken for granted at that point, and it showed. You know, he's the same guy that told me, "You're nothing special." Because I asked for a raise. He's like, "What? What more do you want? You're nothing special." I'm like, "Okay, I'll go find more. I'll go make more. I got a kid on the way. I'll go make more somewhere else." And so yeah, I gave up. I gave him my 2 weeks notice, and
I'm
left that job.
I'm just amazed because I mean, like, and this is not me, going all fangirl on you, but I mean, it's hard for me to think that somebody would describe you and what we know you to be able to do in this industry and what you've done as nothing special, right? I mean,
Don't get me wrong. I was just learning stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm anything
no,
special or anything like that. But like for somebody to talk to you like that, what gives them the right to say something like that to somebody?
first
Am I a dog here?
first of all,
Am
no,
I mean, even dogs get more respect than that.
first of all, nobody has the right, and I mean, it's sickening to think that there's shop owners out there that would ever talk to a staff member. Like, let's just be real. Let's think about it right from a standpoint of outside of our industry. You should never talk to staff that way. Period. Right? And I'm not
Exactly.
some millennial that's was wrapped in bubble wrap from the time I was a kid. That's not my
Yeah.
generation. I didn't grow up like that. Right? I grew up with lots of people that they had nicknames for me when I was coming up, right? And they weren't flattering. But I mean, I think that part of the progress of this industry is the fact that we don't treat our young people like that anymore, and not everybody is an exceptional, right? But that doesn't mean that they're not something special, that, and if even if they're not, that's not how you get your people, obviously, to want to go to war for you, you know, by
Exactly.
saying that to them, right? Because that's the thing when we, and I talk all the time. More people I'm seeing talking about leadership, right? And what's a true leader, and my friend Joshua Taylor, he has a podcast. He talks all the time about HVL, high value leader. And I didn't understand what that meant until I started to actually really get into it, right? And leaders lead by an example. A true leader, yeah, you delegate tasks and you hire people, but a true leader can set the example of, this is how I want it done. This is how I want it. How I treat you is how I would expect to be treated in return. That's a leadership quality,
Exactly.
right? It's
Agreed.
whereas sometimes it's sometimes it's more like we're livestock for these some of these shop owners, right? You're just a donkey out back, and they whip on you, and expect you to get a certain task done by the end of the day, and that's not leadership. That's dictatorship, and the two things are very different.
It's manipulative.
Yes.
That's how I see it. I saw through it for what it was. It was just a manipulative way for him to get into my mind that I'm probably not going to get more money anywhere else, which was obviously false.
Right.
But it's just I feel like It's nothing to do with emotion or with bubble wrapping people or this and that. It's just tactics that they
Yes.
use. And it's more, for what it's worth, it's more of the old school text, because all that old school shop that I went to,
Mm-hmm.
this flat rate shop that I went to, he was an old school text from the 60s and all that. Unfortunately, I see a pattern, and it's, yeah, walk it off, this and that, and you broke your arm, walk it off. That doesn't do anything for anyone.
No.
It's just a tactic for them to get you to keep going.
Yeah.
Keep working. Yeah, so you're bleeding. So what? Yeah, just it's dumb, and it's short sighted, and I'm not falling for that crap anymore. I mean, you hear people say the stories. I used to work 26 hours a day. What are you complaining about? It's all, for me, is just like a way for them to prop themselves up and make us look like we're not enough, and maybe that'll motivate us to do more. I don't know, but it's not going to get the intended result by talking to someone that way. And it's not like, I'm not saying, I joke around with my coworkers all the time. We yeah, we get on each other all the time. It's not about that. It's more about respect, but it's not necessarily about feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Feelings is the least of it. But when somebody thinks that they can get across that line and speak to me a certain way with as much as I have invested into this career,
Right.
it makes me think, why would I invest anymore at where I'm at? I might as well go to somewhere that sees me for what I'm worth, and respect that. So, like you said, how am I going to uh, go to bat for somebody that is expecting you to fail, or every time you screw up, they stomp on you while you're down, they kick you while you're down? Doesn't make any sense. How do you run a successful business by those kind of tactics?
Well,
I don't see it.
and you've probably seen it too, and I know I've seen it a ton in my career. You walk in and you can immediately spot the people that have already checked out. You know what I mean? Like they're there
Mm,
and they're collecting a paycheck and they're doing a job, but they've already checked out. And by checked out, I mean they're
yeah.
not giving it everything they could. They're not pushing themselves to that next level. They're certainly not giving 100%. They're doing the bare minimum. And we all catch a lot of flack lately, it seems, because they say, well, the young people and the new techs and stuff, they don't want to give 100%. Every time I
Do shop owners give 100%? I mean,
well,
I know some shop owner is gonna flip his over his chair right now for me saying that, but
well, so
is the shop owner giving me the 100% tools I need
so
to get the job done?
Mario, the guy that you were essentially running his store for him, that came in at like 11 o'clock and will go home at 3. Do you think he was given 100%? I don't think he was.
100% of what?
Yeah, but if that was his 100%, that's pretty pathetic, right? And
Yeah,
certainly
it's
not
pretty bad.
somebody that should be able to tell somebody else that what is their 100%. And I'm not talking about hours in. I'm talking about like how much effort are you putting towards the business every day? I think sometimes.
And I get it. If he's out there marketing, bringing more cars in, this and that, but when you have me on a certain compensation and then I take on more responsibility, and
Yes.
as a result of that, I have to pay for it, then uh, what? That doesn't make any sense. That does not make any sense. So that doesn't work for me. So
And the idea that
no.
they would tell somebody that they don't need to buy a scope, or they don't need to buy a tool, or they don't need to take a training course. Why would you do that? Why would you do this? Like, I don't myself understand that mentality. And, I I've worked for shop owners that, when you say to them, well, like, can we sign up for some training this year? They go, I'll have to think about it. Like, it costs a lot of money. And, like, and I'm looking at it.
Please, it's a write-off.
Oh, I know. But,
Now, what's even scarier is if they don't know it's a write-off.
yeah, I mean, but again, how much money do some people invest in their accountants or their bookkeepers? Right? We could go down a whole thing of where do you hire the cheapest one for that? Right? And then that person maybe doesn't even know how much money that you've spent on something in your business that you could get back. Right? They don't even know. You just hire somebody that comes in and makes sure, for all intents and purposes, that, you know, you're getting the bills paid. Well,
Right.
whoop
Just the bare minimum.
whoop de do, right? So
They're not actively looking. You can't expect a CPA of like the minimum requirements to look out for your business and tailor their services to your needs,
mhm,
especially in the automotive, which has so it's extremely volatile. It's everywhere. There's so many moving parts. It takes a particular kind of CPA to know exactly what a shop needs, not only today, but when you get past a certain level, when you get past a certain amount of revenue, how do you keep that going? Because you could get the regular old CPA that will just get you by, or you could get the CPA that says, well, if you do this, if you keep going this route, you can maximize this way, and you can go this route, and this is a write off. You can expand here, you could do that, and they guide you through it.
mhm.
But it's the same thing with technicians. I mean, do you want somebody who could just do the bare minimum, require zero training, and get you by, or do you want somebody that can see through to the end? What if you? I'll give you an example. What if you disconnect a battery to do a starter on a Jaguar and the BCM corrupts? What are you going to do then? You don't have anybody in house that knows how to do it, so how to fix it, or you're gonna have to go buy a new BCM. Oh, you don't really have to go buy a new BCM. How would you know that? Did you get trained? No, you didn't get trained, so you had to go buy a new BCM. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
you save money by getting training. You save a lot of money by getting training.
yeah, and that's even if you save money, and then if you get enough training and you enable your people properly, you make even more money.
Exactly.
Because it's not just about what the mistakes that they don't make, it's the work that they're able to do on top of not making mistakes. And that's how we truly start to make money. Yes, yeah, so you could look at it and go, oh, training prevents this, like I'm thinking of okay, going on training, helps the guy, he does a rear brake job and it's got electronic parking brakes and he doesn't corrupt the module because he knows that he has to go and get this tool in order to do it. That training helped that.
Exactly.
If all of a sudden he understands the system very well and he applies it to other things, and you're able to market that and go, well, he just doesn't know this make and model. He knows all of, like what you do. He's a specialist in a European line, all of them. It's not just like he's somewhat familiar with BMW. He does BMW, he does Mercedes, he does Land Rover, he does Jaguar, he does Porsche, he does Audi, he does it all. Well, that all cost a lot to train, a technician like yourself. But it essentially, how many jobs do you have to say, no, we can't do that? Well, almost none, because we have the person in the back that we've tasked and trained to do it. Well, that's a moneymaker all day long. That's like having a winning racehorse, is the way I see it, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
you know,
And preventative is not. I mean, sometimes preventative training that will prevent you from losing money sometimes saves you more money than what you could get by being more efficient, in my opinion. Because certain things, just because you took that class, you prevented a huge loss, a huge loss. So, and that stuff adds up real quick with euros.
oh, I can,
So,
I don't even, yeah, there's a reason I don't, you know, if I never have to work on one, it's not going to hurt my feelings at all. If somebody says, oh, you might not be the guy to work on that Mercedes. Hey, I'm totally comfortable with that, boss. Like, I'm good with that. I just, it's, it, they, they just loom over me. You know what I mean? I guess I see more of the horror stories than the stuff that goes well. So it always looms in the back
the
of my mind.
profitable jobs, it could be pretty profitable to work on euros. So, yeah, you do. Euros do get a lot of bad rap, but I will say this: everyone's following along.
Mm-hmm.
So what a technician might be avoiding by not working on euros today, they're gonna be confronted with in anyway down the line. So
Yeah.
really, you're just kind of prolonging the inevitable to those who just with all that they have, they want to avoid euros. That's what I would say to them. A lot of people ask me what made you want to go to euros. I feel like if I'm gonna get anywhere I might as well just tackle it. Screw it. Embrace the suck, like Dusty would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I embraced the suck. I was like, Euros are hard. Yes, I'm gonna get my ass kicked, but it may pay off. So I just, I jumped in and I got my ass kicked, but
Mhm.
it does pay off. So uh, I would encourage anybody who's a technician, consider taking on some Euros. It's a very fine line. You got to
How
know when
important
not
is
to
the
go,
tooling,
when not to
Mario,
step
for
in.
you to say that you would
It's
encourage the technicians? But can you say, like, is there a minimum tooling that they should have before you could say that you could competently tackle?
it's a lot of special tools, but it really depends on what kind of shop we're talking about, because there's like our shop, we do get timing jobs, so we have the special tools, yes,
Mm-hmm.
but we get more electrical stuff than anything else.
Right.
And if you can nowadays, like with Mercedes, even if you want to change the window motor, you got to SEN code it, and everything is becoming serialized. Everything's becoming so that you cannot swap it. You can't do that swap game, so easily anymore. So it's going to become even worse.
Now, do you think
And
your
it
shop
seems like
is getting a ton of the electrical stuff on the Mercedes because of you?
no, no. This shop already had a great reputation with Mercedes. Like, I think more than 50% of all cars are already Mercedes, and I would say that's because of the shop owner. He's and my coworker Herb. Um, they've they've done so much Mercedes throughout the years. I mean, this shop has been around longer than I have been alive. So
Okay.
I would say that the shop owner has a really great reputation in our community, and we get a lot of work from other shops. And the thing about Mercedes owners is that they spread the word.
Right.
They spread the word. So once somebody's like, "Oh, you work on Mercedes? Where do you take it? Take it over here." That's where they're gonna go. And same thing with Porsche owners. They're very like, they find out somebody's like proficient with them, they will take it there. Now that's when it gets scary, because there's moments you could run into an issue where it's like, oh crap, I haven't seen this one before. This car's so new that, like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
there's really no information. So it can it's a very slippery slope, so to
Right.
speak, on what kind of work you're taking in. So um, it's always good to have a network so that you can reach out to people and say, hey, listen, I haven't run into this, but I'm considering it. Can you give me a heads up as to what I might run into here? Um, that really helps. And training, like Justin Morgan for BMWs, there's training all over the place. It's just, it takes a little bit of looking, but there's a lot of training, and I encourage everyone to
Now,
go and take those classes.
you put up a video a little while ago, I think, and it was a misfire on a Ram truck. I think you put up a
The
video.
Ram.
Might have been I thought it was a Dodge truck, but I remember
I mean, I worked on it.
it
Yeah.
was definitely a domestic. And I was watching the video, and I don't want to say it was that old, and it's not really that important, but I mean, it was like, I was like, wow, Mario's working on a domestic. I wouldn't have expected that. I want to say it was a misfire, or it might have been a misfire or fuel system trim DTC or something like that. But what
Yeah, I did work on.
yeah,
Yeah, I did work. I do still work on domestics and imports too.
and they come into your shop.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I guess a lot of people. I guess I didn't really make it a point to say it, but I tell people now, like, Euros are kind of new to me. I didn't have all that much experience before I came to this shop. This shop really took it like to another level for me,
Right.
which I'll always be grateful for. So yeah, I did have a GMC Yukon misfire and whatnot.
I think I
Yeah.
saw that one too. Yeah. But I know this was a Dodge because it was like, I can't remember what you're doing, but I'm like, okay, I know exactly where he's headed with this because been there before. What's an easy job for you? What do you I mean, because I know you enjoy the challenge, but what is it is something hands what to you is like a real gravy ticket?
A gravy ticket,
Yeah,
as in high hours, or just like a very efficient diag?
just a fish and diag or something that like you enjoy doing. If you could do that, say, you'd hear some guys talk about, well, if I could do like Volkswagen water pumps all day long, I would love doing them. What's
This is kind of new for me. I used to say that about certain things, but I'm starting to work more on Teslas.
Okay.
And I know it gets a lot of pushback, but the info's there. A lot of the info's wrong, but the info is there, and it's starting to grow on me, and I'm like, it's cleaner.
Yeah.
They're still new, obviously. They're not as dirty yet, but they will be. But they're starting to grow on me. But I think the ones that I enjoy the most are the ones that not a lot of people can do.
Right. Okay.
Those are the ones I enjoy the most, to be honest with you. And I run into those every now and then when I'm able to like go to a component level, and and I know that not just any shop can do it, you know. So that's what I really enjoy about it, and it is nice because the customers come out of the woodwork and say, "Well, hey, you fixed this, so I need you to fix mine now."
Yeah.
So it is pretty nice. So I'm starting to like a lot of the immobilizer related stuff,
Okay.
immobilizer systems and all that. So uh, things of that nature. Um,
Do you find yourself
but
getting
for like,
a lot of what we've heard the term sometimes lately, like hero cars, like where,
oh yeah,
yeah. And they
yeah,
don't,
we get flood cars and we get all that stuff.
and you're not bothered by those.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it does get to you because you know you don't want to be a tech of little value, right?
Right.
You want to be valuable to your company.
Mm-hmm.
You can only do that if the job is profitable. It takes a lot more work. It takes a lot more CYA, a lot more documentation to deal with these hero cars, and a lot of foresight too, because you have to start attacking it in the sense of phases. We got this car, the CAN bus is down. It's been sitting for a long time and it's been flooded. You have to start writing stuff like, okay, the bus is down. Let's address that first. It's been sitting a while. The engine doesn't start. Then we have to write, I don't know what we're going to find
Mm-hmm.
once that bus is up. I don't know what's going to communicate. And then let's say I ran into that. I actually put it into Standard Enter Premium. I had a hero car and I
Okay.
put the whole process there. Um, First, it was the junction box, then the key, then the DME, then the starter,
Yeah.
and misfires. I mean, every step of the way there was something. So that actually teaches. Like I would say that one of the positives about these hero cars is that you start to gain a perspective as to what is it going to need. What am I going to find when I do fix this part,
Mm-hmm.
this particular phase that we are. So we fix a communication problem. We don't know what's going to communicate. There may be modules that don't communicate. I just ran into one today. It was a powertrain bus down. Fix the powertrain bus. Then no comms with the DME.
Okay.
So and then once we do have comms with the DME, I don't know how if this engine is going to crank or not. And if it does crank, I don't know how it's going to run. Once it does run, I don't know if it's going to make any noises. I don't know if it's
Yes.
going to make have any misfires. And then once we do get it running without misfires, I don't know how it's going to go down the road. Is it
Right.
going to steer one way? Is it going to brake? Is the caliper frozen?
Is it
Is
going to
you know
shift? Yeah.
yeah. So you start writing down this whole tree of possibilities because nowadays you got to cover your ass so hard
Mm-hmm.
that if you don't write it down, that well, what kind of mechanic are you guys? It's not. I'm not saying that the shop is saying this. They're not saying this, but that's where we've come down to, where everything is so. Um, people are asking questions now. People want to know. They're not just saying, "Okay, that's what it is." All right, whatever you say it is, that's what it is. Those days are over. Customers want to be informed. Um, so documentation is huge, and also, the possible, foreseeable issues that we might run into once we fix each part
Hmm.
we get through. Oh, but the car wasn't running like this before that. That you're always gonna hear that, and
It was
that's that's the risk. Yeah,
it ran good before it was parked and flooded. You know what I mean?
yeah, for 5 years.
And then for 5 years nobody did anything with it, right? So yeah. Do you find that it's so? I guess then you're not paid flat rate. You're not. Are you any kind of incentivized at all, or is it just you show up? You know, when you work for X amount of hours, you're going to clear this much, and does that kind of keep your head in a good spot so that you can work towards solving these kind of nightmare hero cars? Because I'd have to think like I know how I am with my attitude that even if I had any kind of incentivize at all, and I had these kind of nightmare cars, it's still going to affect my thought process into when I'm going to necessarily pull the trigger, right? How much time I'm going to invest into the diag of trying to get to the root of the problem. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to think like I'm 95% sure after 60 minutes. To be 100% sure would take me another hour, right? And that's how my brain works is like, to get 5% more, do I spend that other hour? Whereas how does it work for you?
That's a great question. I actually took a while for somebody to actually ask me that.
Well, I mean, that's what I
all
hear.
all the people I talk to, they don't ask. I'm not on flat rate. I was at a certain point on an incentivized plan
Hmm.
based on production, and when I was presented with that, yeah, deep down inside, you can't help but think, well, you know what? Maybe I should take more money home, and this and that. You can't help but be lured in by that possibility. But I know myself. If I get into that, I will become the biggest asshole of all time. Because no, you're not touching that car, and I'm just gonna get everything. That's what flat rate does to me, and
Yeah.
and sure, it might not be true for everyone, but
No,
that's what
I was the same
flat
way
rate does to me.
because I used to sit there and say, well, if that guy across the bay from me, if he's going to have a comeback on it and I'm not, then he can sit on his bench
Yeah,
and I'll do all the work, right? Because I don't like the whole idea that this is a team sport or this is a team environment. I understand where they get that from, but I mean, as soon as you bring incentivized in, I want all the work, right? If
exactly.
what I'm good at, what I'm tasked to do, I want all of it because I'm in control of it. Then nobody else, and my partner, my guy across the bay from me, if he does it and it has a comeback, and we all then don't get a bonus at the end of the month, or we all get a shit CSI score, we all get we don't hit a goal, I'm mad. I'm pissed
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like I hold myself to such a standard that I want to be in control, which means I want all the work so that I can control all the
Yeah,
variables, right? Because otherwise, I don't want to get in trouble for what he's doing, right? As a team, I hate that. Like it'd be like, you know, the team didn't win the cup. You got a guy that rode the bench the whole game. The coach shouldn't need to be there when the coach is being yelled at, when the coach is yelling at everybody, right? He's not responsible. He had nothing to do with it. Let him go. That's the way I always felt when in any kind of place was like my dealership days. If I'm not pleased, I'm not saying I'm perfect. Nobody is. But I was
right.
just cranked up all the time when we talked about CSI, we talked about comebacks, and it's like, but you gave him, you know, you gave him diag, and you know that he's not strong at it. So I would have worked, 7 in the morning until 7 at night, 6 days a week, if they'd have just fed me that steady diet of it because I could do it. I liked doing it. It made me money, and I did it right, and it didn't come back. But no, you want to give him some. Most of it comes back, right? Now we're all getting in shit as a team, like that stuff. So when I can relate with what you're saying, where you want all the work, you're going to become an asshole. because I've been in the exact same place, you know?
With some context, I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about directly dictating what I can bring home to my family,
Hmm.
you know? And I'm not going to let somebody else get in the way of that. Not the parts guy, not
Yes.
anybody,
Yeah.
you know? So, do you really want me on flat rate? I don't think anybody wants me on flat rate because I'm taking those cars. And do you want me to spend all this time on Diag? No, we're charging for a
Mm.
lot for Diag a lot. You know, we're charging what we need to charge. Oh, 1 hour. Oh, 1 hour Diag charge menu pricing. No, no, get that out of here. If
Mhm.
that's what you're gonna do, then don't give me Diag. That's how I turn. That's what I turn into, and
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like it. So I much rather be on my salary
Yeah.
and be content with that, but growing in proficiency and technologically and staying up with training and and where this industry is going. You know, the hydrogen engines coming around.
Hmm.
We got to stay on top of that. But if I'm on flat rate, what do I care about electric cars? What do I care about this and that? I care about the gravy jobs, and I care about bringing home as much as I can at whatever it takes. You know, and I know some shop owners are probably like, "Well, that's what I want." No, you don't. No, you don't. You're gonna have everybody choking each other.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there's oh, but well, my not at my shop. My shop has a family atmosphere. Well, you know what, man? You're talking about directly cutting someone's pay based on production and nothing else. We're not talking about technical proficiency. We're not talking about. I know somebody's going to argue, oh, well, technical proficiency will result in production and this and that, but there's so much more that goes into production than just one thing or just efficiency and just this and that.
There's so much
It takes a lot of
billing goes into production. Proficiency is how
yeah,
smart you are, how well you do the job. Production,
yeah, workflow.
yeah,
Yeah,
production is billing,
I would.
right?
Yeah, I would be getting on everything. Like, oh well, no, I have to walk all the way over there to get this special tool. I have to do this. I have to go push a car in. I'm not getting paid for that. You want me to be on flat rate? You want me to be producing? Then I'm going to be producing. So, you know, I'd rather do what I'm doing now. And anybody ask me for help, I'll help.
Hmm.
You know, I get the headaches sometimes. I get some headaches of I mean, car wise, like I get some hero cars every now and then. And I try my best, but you put me on flat rate, it's just like, what incentive do I have to, you know, go home and study a system that, you know, I'm probably going to see one time this year,
Hmm.
you know, for this hero car or something, you know,
Yeah.
there's just no incentive. And yeah, I guess that might make me come off as like, well, then you're just motivated by money or you're just motivated by this or that. Look, in the end of the day, I got to bring home something, right? I got to bring home something for my family. And if I can come home and not be stressed and hug my kids and have a smile on my face, a genuine smile without having to like tuck it all away, that means more to me than anything else.
Yeah.
And I can still pay my bills and I can still get ahead in life. I'm good, you know. But if you're talking about me risking myself, sticking my neck out and possibly earning less, you know, because let's be real, they're going to they'll add more responsibilities. I've already been through this with other flat rate shops. Well, I went from producing only to like answering phones to talking to customers to this to that, and then little by little, incrementally, they just start adding more and more tasks to dilute your production. So
Because
yeah,
it's a
rant
leverage
over.
thing, right? They leverage it against you. And they're taking
Yeah,
advantage of your because you'd had the experience, like you'd said, from way back when of running the front counter when you were injured. You know, they look at it and they go,
yeah,
okay, he can do that. And, you know, I've been blessed most times that like because I either was strictly like flat rate and I never had to talk to anybody, or if I worked in a shop, I was hourly and, you know, I talked to the customer for as long as it took for them to understand and feel comfortable
yeah,
with what we were doing for their car. And it wasn't like I was sitting there looking at my watch going, Because I can remember the days at the dealership, and it'd be like, their customers trying to give you the rundown on what's wrong with the car, and you're like looking at
Yeah.
the watch going,
Hey, wrap it up, man. Wrap it up.
I got 10 more tickets I want to look at today,
That's
right? And
yeah,
and people look at us sometimes, and it's like, that's a shit attitude. It's not a shit attitude. It's the same attitude that the advisor has, right? It's just the advisor
exactly.
can go home that day and go, well, I only made my base today, but I got a bunch of big jobs in the shop that are going to help with my bonus, right? Whereas if we look at it and we go, there's no base for me. Like I spent,
Yeah, exactly.
I went on 5 nightmare car test drives, or looked at 5 nightmare cars, and it was all say it's under warranty now, and we're not paying our techs under warranty for Diag. That's another stupid thing. And so I got a bunch of parts ordered and a bunch of jobs coming up, but today I made 0. Right? I filled my schedule, but today I made 0. Of course, then when I'm sitting there trying to get to Mrs. Smith, listen to her and pretend to be nice, and I got my shirt tucked in and my uniform's clean, of course I'm going to look at my watch going, okay, Mrs. Smith, like, let's ramp this up because I'm trying to salvage it.
Yeah, exactly. Wrap this up and let's go. I got money to make
Yeah.
and I got kids to feed.
Yeah.
So that's how I saw it, at least. And I hope I don't come across as a, like, anti-flat rate guy.
No.
It's not that. I've had bad personal experiences, but I do think that there are shops that can make it work. They're just highly efficient shops, so very well oiled machine, and I think that that's what's required to have a successfully run flat rate shop with happy technicians.
Yeah.
And there, it's not the norm. I've been saying it all over a million times. It's just not the norm. People say, oh, but my shop, everyone gets 120, 30 hours, 50 hours, 200 hours a week. Yeah, that's you,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not everyone. That's not all of us. That's not the majority. And people have to stop acting like it is. It's not the majority. The majority of shops are starving for. They either have too many technicians for
Yeah.
the workload that they have, or they're just you know sending them down the road. Oh, take it to the dealer, take it to this, take it to that. So, and then in the public's eye, oh well, nobody can really. Who can work on my car? All these mechanics are dumb. That's what they think of us. So it's a tricky balance. Are we going to be the convenience shop where the customer could just in and out? You could wait 10-minute oil changes, or are you going to be the shop that can actually be fix complex problems, and you don't have to send that customer down the road a million times? How many times I hear customers say, "Oh man, I went to 20 different shops. I went to 20 different guys, and you're the only one that can do it, and you're the only shop that can do it." And that's one of the things that my shop owner prides himself, and he wants that reputation, and
Mm-hmm.
he's earned it. But too many shops are just like sending it down the road, and then
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, the general public just looks at us as incompetent. So, uh, what's more important? Should the industry look more competent and stop trying to produce at all costs, or should we cater to their convenience? That's
That's an awesome.
rough.
That's an awesome question, and the way I feel about it is like, we have to get away from the money has to be like, listen, we're not in business for feelings. We're in business to make money, right? But I mean,
Right.
too many times we're worried about the feelings, and it costs us money that we maybe could be investing back into the tooling or into the payroll of the people that work for us, so that they can become more competent. So then we don't have so many feelings of already distrust before. You know how it is, like, you first time customers there, they've got this nightmare problem. They think you're number 6 of 6 shop that's looked at it. That's probably, they don't have a whole lot of faith in you, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And so what I think we need to start to do is pick our battles. I've said that for years, right? If you don't think you're tooled up or have the staff to be able to get to that nightmare problem, don't take it in. And that sucks. It's terrible. But I mean, if we start to do that, we start to realize that, okay, I either need to shift to where I only do X, Y, and Z because I don't have the tooling, right? So I'm back there struggling without the tooling. Or you say, okay, I'm going to solve this car no matter what. then I need to invest in tooling and I need to invest in talent. And those two things cost a lot of money. Now, if we're going to cost a whole lot of money to get to the bottom of this car or these types of cars, we need to stop thinking about feelings. I feel for that customer because they've spent money or they've been around, and we need to firstly make the job profitable so that we can get to the bottom of the problem. Because that's it. Like there's too many times where we're tackling things that we don't have the tooling for, or we don't train our staff because training's too much money. But then we tackle these cars, and it's just this constant cycle of we didn't make any money on that job. Well, how do we make money on the next job? Well, we hope that it comes in and it's like, okay, I remember that. It's the exact same scenario, exact same problem, right? We don't have to go through all that headache. That's how a dealership works, Mario, is because it's like the first one that you ever see, and it's like, it kicks your tail. And then you go, all of a sudden you go, that's the same code that was caused by the same rotten splice right down here in the wiring harness. And you immediately go there first, you find it, you fix it, problem's done. All that time and wasted time, you don't do it anymore. That works in a dealership. Outside of the dealership environment, you may never see that kind of exact symptom again in that car again. But this is where the difference is that everybody thinks, well, I lost on this one, but we'll make it up on the next one. The next one may never come in, right? So
Yeah.
in the aftermarket, need to change our way of thinking to where it's like, I need to invest really big in tooling and really big in payroll so that my people can be very good at getting to the problem with a process the first time, accurately solving the problem out the door. Not, okay, we tried X, Y, and Z and it didn't fix it. The final bullet that we fired out of the cannon was what fixed the car. We didn't charge her for all the other time and everything else, and that's great, but we didn't make any money on it. We need to stop not making money, right? And then when we do make,
stop subsidizing repairs.
yes, and that's a tricky thing because it's like you don't want to be cold and callous, and I don't think it is cold and callous to say. I think it's much more respectable, to be able to say to somebody, and I think that they should respect you if you say, listen, we're not your shop for that. Or we don't have a guy that, I don't feel like I have the tooling that can get to the bottom of your programming issue or your whatever on your car. But I do know a person that is. Let me give you his number or their number. And you do that. I think that is way better than some of these hero cars that we are all getting into. And I'm not saying, listen, if you want to tackle it and you want to get to the bottom of it, pride, I'm not hating on you for that. But we have to realize then that it's the tech that is doing it. Don't grill the tech about the time that it took. Don't grill the tech. Just thank the tech, pat him on the back, her, and say, great job, man. That is impressive. I'm impressed to hell that you got to the bottom of that. And don't judge them on the time. Judge them on what they were able to do. That's how we
I wish it would be like that. And you make a good point. It's is it competition versus community?
Yes.
We've been so busy competing with each other that we're not willing to share a number. We're not willing to share another shop's number. Or the only time that you really would share someone else's number is if you don't want that job. And that's, like I said, in the end of the day, the public will just distrust us. And if we keep feeding them, we keep conditioning them to convenience, then all they want is the fastest shop possible. And they're going to end up with shops that can only do nominal jobs, not anything in depth, not anything uh, profound. So we're really conditioning the customers to get used to a bunch of drive-through shops. I don't think that's the way to go, to be honest with you. And maybe the answer is specialization. I don't know, but definitely training is involved. But
yeah, for sure.
I think we just got to take a little more pride in what we do. And I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything, but I do think that we got to step it up and think of the big picture as well, because we can all benefit from having a better reputation as an industry, and Unfortunately, we've earned ourselves a pretty bad reputation, and it's going to take a lot of work to undo that. But it's not going to happen if we don't work together. If we keep competing, uh, I get it. It's business. You got to make money, right? But how much more money would you make with a public that trusts more shops, that isn't such in such a hurry for everything, that you cannot make a mistake? You're on the edge of perfection, is what you're living on. How long will it take to diagnose my problem? I guarantee you that thing will be fixed today. Aren't you riding on the edge of perfection there? Like, what if one mistake happens? Then what? What if you can't even get the part? So just think, we need a little more cushion. We need a little more trust, and that's not going to happen by being so ultra competitive. It's going to take a little more community and a lot more networking.
More transparency for sure. All of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of work, but I
So
think we can do it.
you're excited about ASTE. You're going to go, and you said you're going to take you're taking mostly business classes when you go this time.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a financially literate guy, so I might as well start sharpening up on that.
Yeah.
I was never, schooled on financial literacy, so I think it's time.
I'm right there
And
with,
maybe yeah,
I'm right
maybe
there with you.
it'll help my perspective. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, you're gonna take some business classes too.
I mean, I took Cecil's last year, and then there was somebody was going to be doing a leadership class last year, and it was, I can't remember who was supposed to be teaching it. Maybe Mr. Morton. And
There, there's a tax class too. That's might be worth looking into.
yeah, and I wanted to take the leadership.
Oh well. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to take the leadership, and I wanted to take the business, and I know one of the leadership classes ended up being canceled because of somebody wasn't able to make it because of the hurricane last year. So I'm hoping that no hurricanes this year, so that everybody can arrive. I'm going to pop in on Oscar's class for a few minutes. I'm looking forward to that. Brendan Dill's class, I want to pop in on. Jim Kokonis, I'm going to pop in on him. So I'm actually recording with him on.
There's a lot of good names.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see you when we get there. We'll try to sit down and have a meal or a beer or something. And this has been awesome. This has been really good, Mario. This is one I want to record for a long, long time because I got a ton of respect for you, and like I said, I owe you. It's because of your episode that, like I said at the very beginning of this, that I stepped out there and said, okay, well, if Mario interviews with David and Lucas, then I want to do that. And it's changed my directive. And I mean, we need a whole lot more techs with your kind of work ethic and your kind of drive to improve constantly, right? Like that's what I take away from this talk tonight, is that you have that thirst that most don't, and it's remarkable to see, and I hope that it never ever ever burns out for you, because I mean, there's no, like I said to Oscar, it's the same thing, there's no ceiling for you. I've never seen it yet, and for somebody to say like, oh, that you're nothing that special, dude, when you see the other people in the industry, and I mean, you've seen the people I've interviewed and the people that I talk to and stuff like that, they would all laugh at the idea that when they say that you're not special. If there's probably anybody that thinks that, it'd be you. I mean, to think that 10 years ago you started work in a Tire Plus, and now you're at the level that you're at, it's nothing short of amazing. Nothing short of amazing. So
I appreciate the kind words, man, and I'm looking forward to meeting you again over there in ASTE. I'm actually going to go with my twin brother Martin, and the shop owner is going to go too.
That is awesome then, because I was going to ask about him, but we didn't get to that. But I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool, because I've got a twin too. Now he doesn't. I mean, him and I are. I mean, we're identical twins, but we have not really any other interest in common at all. He can put washer fluid in it and fuel, and that's about it when it comes to a vehicle. The rest has no interest in him at all. But I mean, that was something.
That's so funny.
Yeah, because I wanted to see the dynamic between you and your brother. That's gonna be cool to see how that is if how you guys are different. Because I think you guys are different, but I mean, there's probably a lot of things that are the same. And I'm jazzed to see that. So I want to thank you for being on tonight. I won't take you any more of your time away from your beautiful family. So, but I appreciate you sitting down with us and telling your story. It was a good one. So, and
I appreciate you having me, and can't wait to see you guys. And hopefully, I truly wish the best for this podcast and for your career too, man. Because we've spoken in the past, we've come a long way, and I think it's pretty cool.
yeah,
And I like what you're doing. I like what you're doing with this podcast. It's an easy listen.
yeah,
It's my top along with the CPA guy from the aftermarket radio.
CPA.
Those Hunt.
Oh yeah,
You got to look them up.
yeah.
Hunt. Yeah, great listens.
I appreciate that because I mean, it's we don't come on here and try to be anything too regimented or anything too we don't come in here and hammer a particular topic, right? I want
Yeah,
people,
for sure.
I want people to get to know you and any of the guests that get on. That's what this is about, is shining light on people that are groundbreaking in their industry, people that are setting the kind of example of what we all want. That's what the whole point of this podcast is. I just get to nerd out on the people that are like really groundbreaking people, really, stellar examples of what we're trying to be, all of us should be. And that's how I that's how I want to pick the guests. That's how I want people to come on and be able to say, well, Mario did that in 10 years. And, that's amazing. And then be able to go, well, if he did it, then why can't I do it? And that doesn't matter whether
The training is there.
Yeah, exactly.
The training is there. The resources are there, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but like Eric O would say, if I could do it, you could do it.
That's exactly
And
it. Yeah.
I'm not a smart guy, so I just get my ass kicked a lot. So repetition, write it down, make an index, make the notes, pay attention. If any newcomers to this industry is listening, stick with it and don't let nobody tell you anything different. And
That's
if
right.
they do, well, they don't know any better.
That's right.
You just got to make your own future. It's in your hands. It's what you make of it. So,
Amen.
thanks for having me. It was a great time, and I hope to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. I'll see you in 21 days. I'm excited. It's
Yeah,
come
man.
fast. Eh?
Awesome.
3 weeks, man. 3 weeks. Hey, if you could do me a favor real quick and comment on, and share this episode, I'd really appreciate it. And please, most importantly, set the podcast to automatically download every Tuesday morning. As always, I'd like to thank our amazing guests for their perspectives and expertise, and I hope that you'll please join us again next week on this journey of change. Thank you to my partners in the ASTE group and to the Changing the Industry podcast. Remember what I always say, in this industry, you get what you pay for. Here's hoping everyone finds their missing 10 millimeter, and we'll see you all again next time.